Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of the day you're having. I'm Wonder Wendy, your host on The Imperfect Prophet. So you just saw this past weekend, I took a little road trip. I went out to the Queen Creek Olive Mill, which is outside of Phoenix, used to be in the middle of farming country. Now it's a booming suburban metropolis, all freshly sprung from the ground in the last few years. But the olive mill still exists, and they have acres of olive trees, and it's a beautiful agritourism location. Now, why am I bothering to tell you all this? I'm telling you all this, as I said in my introduction, there was a time in my life when I thought olives were the scourge of the earth, the nastiest things ever. If it was on the pizza, please take the pizza away. I'd still taste it. I do not want to have olives on anything. They're awful. I knew this. I knew this for certain. Okay? Then there was a magical day. The first time my now husband took me to New York City, and he was trying to impress me. So he took me to Oscar's at the Waldorf for brunch. A little bit bougie anyway. So we're at Oscar's and I'm happily eating the buffet. They had this amazing breakfast buffet. I don't know what it's going to be like now that it's been closed and it's going to reopen under Chinese management, but that's a whole different conversation. And there was this amazing bread on the buffet, and I am chowing on this bread. It is so good. But I don't know what's so extraordinary about it. I'm a bread person. I've actually baked bread, so I get into really good bread. And I say to my waiter, "What is this bread? It is so amazing." And he looks at me and says, "Oh, it's olive bread." You don't understand. I don't like olives. So I give it a moment of thought, and then I realize you're at the Waldorf. Everything's better at the Waldorf. So maybe you only like olives at the Waldorf. That's a possibility. So I accepted that explanation for a while. And then olives snuck into my diet once again as part of a mixed salad. And once again, I said, "This is amazing. Oh my gosh, this is an olive." Now, having grown up in Vermont, I didn't get exposed to a lot of gourmet olive stores, nor really good olives. And probably those olives I'd experienced on the pizza or on the taco were those canned black things, which if you like those, God bless you. You love what you love. But I still don't really care for those, to be perfectly honest. But give me a green olive or a Kalamata olive. I could eat those all day long. So good. The only way they're better is in a martini. And that's another story about martinis. But olives and my taste changing. Now, about that same time, I heard a theory that all of the cells in your body turn over, like you slowly shed them off and you rebuild your body. And over the course of about 7 years, you form an entirely new body. I don't know if I buy that, but the corollary to that was about every 7 years, you may find your taste change. That's another possibility. So maybe my taste changed. Maybe I just never had a really good olive before, like these lovely green olives. So good. And then I went to Greece and I got the chance to eat olives in Delphi, overlooking beautiful olive groves. I decided that was really the way olives should be eaten. I need to do that again sometime. But even if I don't get to go back to Greece, I can still get great green olives. She says, putting another olive in her mouth. So what do we have to learn from this? There are a lot of things in our lives that we think we know. We think we know the truth. We think we know it all. I never liked the color red. And then suddenly you develop a taste for red. How many things are we preventing ourselves from doing because we think we know the truth? Because we think we don't like it? My mom used to tell a story about a boxer who lost his sense of smell in a boxing match. Apparently that's a real thing. Here, let's have another olive. So good. And he also lost his taste when he lost his sense of smell. And he said, "Oh, I don't eat that because I don't like it." And somebody said to him, "How do you know you don't like it if you can't taste anything?" He said, "Well, I didn't like it beforehand." You know what we call that? We call that closed-minded. And closed-minded thinking keeps you trapped. And if you're going to be a bucket lister, you don't want to be trapped. Let's say you've had a bad relationship in the past. Raise your hand if you haven't. I don't see any hands, so I'm going to not believe you. Anyway, if you've never had a bad relationship, God bless you. But if you have had a bad relationship, is that a reason to never get in a relationship again? If you've had a friendship fall apart, is that a reason to never make a friend again? Life is full of risks, and some are little tiny risks, like saying hi to somebody and risking rejection. And some are great big risks, like rappelling off a 9-story building, which I've done twice. Both times it was a fundraiser for a theatrical organization, and we had trainers and we had heavily tested equipment, and they had a liability insurance. But I will tell you, when I took that first step off the building, I don't really have a fear of heights. I have a respect of heights because I know what happens with the sudden stop at the end. But that said, you go out over the ledge, you've got the harness on, you got the helmet on, you've got the coach talking to you. They have demonstrated that even if you let go and pass out, there is a person on the bottom who has a brake that will stop you from falling. It is so safe. It is probably safer than walking down the street because you can trip on the sidewalk and fall down and lose 2 front teeth. I'm just saying. As safe as it was, my brain went, why are you climbing over this ledge? And look how far down it is. That is really terrifying. And then you have to lean your body, which I can't do in this phone booth, lean your body away from the wall with your feet on the wall. So you're basically in an L position with your body perpendicular to the wall, or no, your legs perpendicular to the wall, your body parallel to the wall. So you're in an L position with your feet on the wall. And then it should be easy. One leg moves and goes down, and the other leg follows. And my coach, I'm just going to have an olive because I'm getting anxious just thinking about this. Oh, speared that olive. Oh, so good. Anyway, see, that gets me talking and happy again. I went to move my foot, and the coach says, okay, move your foot. And I'm looking at my foot, and I'm thinking, okay, foot, move, foot, move. And foot just says, fuck you. No, that's stupid. Go back over the wall, get back into a safe place, and don't do this. I kept looking at foot and saying, foot, move. And then finally that foot did move, but it was like a giant piece of spaghetti. It wiggled and jiggled and wasn't really listening to me. It was crazy. And the coach at the top says to me, oh, this happens a lot. We call it Elvis legs. I actually have a word for it. Elvis legs. Remember Elvis and the way he used to shimmy and shake and do that hip thing and the knee thing and the everything thing? It was all moving. Apparently that's what my legs were doing. So anyway, I did it. That leg finally moved, and then the next leg moved. And I was so focused on the hand positions and the brakes and everything else that I forgot to notice that you have an incredible view from that wall if you just turn and look over the lake. This building was on the waterfront on Burlington, Vermont, and it had a gorgeous view of the lake. But I was so distracted with my fear and my anxiety that I missed a gorgeous view. And when I finally got to the bottom, I said, wait a minute, I didn't do this right. Can I go back up and do it again? No, you don't get to do it around. You get to do it once for your fundraising efforts. So the next year I did fundraising again so I could do it again because dang it, I needed to do it right. And the next time my legs didn't shake quite so much. They did shake some. It was still intimidating. So let's talk about trying new things. And I'm not saying all of you should take up rappelling because it's not for everybody. And I know there are people who are physically unable to conquer their fear of heights. But I would challenge you to crawl across the floor and look at a view that you otherwise couldn't look at because of your fear of heights. Go ahead, sit on the floor. If somebody judges you, that's their problem. Enjoy the view. If you go to the Grand Canyon, they tell you not to get too close to the edge because every year we lose a couple tourists who get too close to the edge and make a stupid mistake. And when you look over that edge, you'll understand why they don't want you too close to the edge. I still wanted to see the view. So what did I do? I crawled up to the view and looked over and kept myself firmly planted on the ground so that there was absolutely no danger. And when I wanted a really good shot of me with the cannon in the background, I laid down on the edge, leaned back, held my phone above me, and took a picture. It was a pretty good picture, too. But I did it in a safe way. So there are ways to keep yourself safe and bend your boundary zones. Oh, and by the way, this is an olive. If you don't like olives, you may go bleh, but they're not going to kill you. Unless they're pitted olives and you choke on the pip, they pose absolutely no danger. And sometimes you have to think about that. What's the worst thing that could happen? Really? The worst thing that could happen is I go bleh and spit it out. Okay. And you don't want to do that necessarily in a polite company because polite company can get really offended by things like that. But if you don't like it, discreetly excuse yourself, go to the bathroom, get rid of it, whatever. There are so many ways to conquer these things. I've actually learned to eat oysters. Now, I will tell you, I don't love oysters. I learned to eat them so I could be socially acceptable when somebody honored me by serving such an expensive dish. What I do tell people is I will eat an oyster. I know how to eat an oyster, but they're really wasted on me. I don't enjoy it. That's fine. And you're allowed to say that. You are allowed to have your own taste, but also respect that somebody might be honoring you with monkey brains if you're in certain parts of the world. That might be a really amazing dish or a 1,000-year-old egg or something like that could be very intimidating. But remember, they're honoring you and remember to be gracious. And if somebody else likes it, okay, you probably like something that nobody else likes too. So growing older, changing, getting smarter. Let's hope we're getting smarter. If you're not getting smarter, please work on that. I like being around smart people. I'll be really honest. And if I leave you in the dust, it may be because I was exposed to some really weird information that you haven't been exposed to. Please don't judge me. Just learn. It's okay. And you might have something to teach me. I've learned a lot of things in this life, and a lot even in the last 10 years. As much as my husband has made me into a baseball fan, there are times I go to a game and say, wait, what just happened? And I need an explanation. Constant learning is important. And I encourage that. I encourage that you try things that are new, whether it's food, experiences, bull. Have you ever met that person who, like, the first time you see them, you pull back a little bit? Maybe there was something disarming about them. Maybe they had an interesting expression. Maybe they had a lot of tattoos and you're not accustomed to tattoos. Maybe they had a lot of piercings. Maybe they just look snobby and you didn't think you'd like them. This goes both ways, by the way. It's not just about being odd. Sometimes when people are too normal, you say, hey, Valley of the Dolls, I'm a little afraid here. Are you an alien? It's hard to meet new people. And it's okay to have judgment about those people because sometimes those snap judgments are what save your life. And I don't say that in a mean way. I say sometimes you hear something, you smell something, you have an experience and you realize you might be in danger and you take extra precaution. Or it helps you realize somebody needs help. There's all sorts of ways that your judgment is your subconscious sending you messages that your conscious brain can't catch up with. And that's okay. I spend a lot of time saying things are okay. And that's because I don't want you to feel alone. I want you to know you are okay. You are a great person. And somebody out there loves you. And somebody out there wants to be you. And remember that. That said, meeting strangers, having snap judgment calls about them. When judgment becomes a problem is when you become trapped by that judgment. That you can't realize that person who, for whatever reason, said something off in your gut, maybe was just having a bad day, or maybe was just alien to your experience and you didn't know how to deal with it. Your ability to go beyond that first judgment is what makes you a wise person. That's what makes you a bucket lister. And you will meet people who are very different from yourself. I had the pleasure this weekend of hanging out with a drag queen. Another olive, excuse me. So good. I shouldn't do this with a pile of olives in front of me. All I want to do is eat them. I've hung out with drag queens before, so don't get me wrong. But the first time I started meeting drag queens and hanging out with drag queens, I had to ask a lot of questions because I didn't really understand the culture. I didn't understand, is this a man? Is this a woman? What are they trying to do? I'm not alone in that one. I know for certain. Several years ago, the minor league baseball team that I worked with at the time had an on-field host. Several years ago, I worked with a minor league baseball team in Burlington, Vermont. And for a while, the on-field host, a very entertaining man, I knew was also a drag queen. I'd seen him perform, or seen her perform. I see him on the field. I see her perform. It's a kind of confusing thing if you've never been with drag queens before. Anyway, Bob, on the field, guy's guy, Bermuda shorts, T-shirts, knows the game, entertaining. I had baseball players from the team living with me at the time. And over dinner one night, one of the players, who is from the Deep South, says, "Do you know that guy who does the on-field entertainment dresses up as a woman?" There was a lot of judgment in that little voice. He's a young man from the Deep South. And I had to remember that. So I smiled and turned and looked at him and said, "Yes. And when Bob is Amber, she is very entertaining. And they do political satire, and they are delightful. He's actually part of a drag troupe. We've seen him multiple times. He is an active member of our community, and he really does make a difference." I changed this young man's opinion of what it meant, because clearly the guys in the locker room would be going, "Hey, he dresses up as a woman," and being judgmental. But that young baseball player learned something that day and changed his judgment and maybe became a little bit more tolerant and accepting. I encourage you to stay open to new things like olives. Okay? I know I'll keep going back to olives just because it gives me another excuse to eat another olive. But I only have one olive left now. Sadness. And no martini. Even more sadness. And martinis will be another episode, I promise you. But we've talked about it before. Finding your tribe is important. But your tribe may not be the people you think it is. I've found my tribe actually is a really interesting bag of mixed nuts, because I need people who understand my artistic side. I need people who understand my business side. I need people who understand cooking and sewing and theater and music and baseball. Oh, and I'd also like people who would teach me something new. I don't want everyone in my life to just repeat everything I say and agree with everything I say. Sycophants seem like fun, but if someone's a sycophant, they're going to agree with everything you say, and I hope you actually get bored with that. I don't want you to be surrounded with people who don't ever challenge you or teach you new things, because as much as that's an easy life, easy isn't always the most interesting thing in the world. And I want you to have an interesting life, because you know what happens if you're not growing? You're slowly dying. Stars that are in expansion are growing stars. As soon as a star stops growing, it's working towards becoming a dead star. Now, obviously, that takes millennia. I need a person who does star stuff, planet stuff, science stuff to answer that question. But I know it happens. Our lives are much shorter than a star's. But at the same time, if you're not expanding, if you're not growing, you are slowly turning into a shrinking star that will eventually die. And you will die. We've already discussed that. Death is inevitable. But having your best life between now and that point, wouldn't that be a better goal than planning on dying? That's what I think. Remember, aging happens from the day you're born. I'm 1 day old, I'm 2 day old, I'm 1 month old, I'm 2 month old, I'm 1 year old, I'm 2 year old, I'm 5 years old. Have you ever seen a 5-year-old? I'm 5 years old. You're aging. Aging happens, but getting old is a choice. So I'm Wonder Wendy with my last olive here. And I think that's a good time to wrap things up. Thanks for listening to The Imperfect Prophet. I love olives. Send olives too. No, just kidding. Actually, maybe I'm not. If you're in Greece and you can get me really good olives from Delphi, please send them. Anyway, thanks for listening to The Imperfect Prophet. I'm Wonder Wendy, and I look forward to talking to you again and hearing about your adventures. Please go to my Facebook page, The Wonderful Bucket List Life, and share what you've learned and help us all grow together. If you want to get on my mailing list and get a monthly newsletter from me, please visit my webpage, WonderWendyandFriends.com. I would love to hear from you. And have a wonderful day.